Welcome to the season premiere, season 3 of the Brekkie NFL Show. I'm Laurie Horesh. We are in the midst of a frantic and fun-filled opening week of the NFL season. We have one more game to go with Monday Night Football kicking off in a couple hours' time. You'll catch it on ESPN in Australia and New Zealand. Before we get into all of that, I get to welcome in my dear co-host all the way from the other side of the world, Phil Murphy, coming in from Bristol, Connecticut. Phil, get us underway for this gorgeous season 3 for this show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Laws, it feels so good, man. I'm disappointed not to be on the road for every Monday night game like last season, but my wife thanks me for that. I'm going to be ESPN headquarters Bristol based for most of these weeks. I think I'm going to 4 or 5 Monday night games throughout the year, some select games that we're covering, but for purposes of this show, we took the show on the road last year. We had some internet connectivity headaches, especially when we tried to do it from the sidelines in Vegas. That was a disaster. So now in the comforts of my own home, we get to broadcast what is the People's Show, the Brekkie NFL Show, week 1. And this is the People's Show. So we want you to contribute with comments, questions. Laurie and I are going to cover a couple topics. We try to have this show be an extension of the conversations we have about the NFL every week, coloring outside the lines a little bit. So we want your reactions, your thoughts. And if any of these themes, if you have somebody who you think we missed or overlooked or somebody who you rate for one of these categories, we want to hear what you have to say. Brad Bolt, thank you for welcoming us in. We are happy to be back. So Laws, we've been on air for about 2 minutes now. I think I've dragged things out fast enough, long enough for people to see the tweets. We're on a number of different social platforms as well. So get us started, man. Where are we starting in terms of topics and things that are the pressing issues that you saw now that we have the first sample size of competitive NFL football in 7 months, if you count the Super Bowl, in 8.5, if you count the conclusion of last regular season?
All right. Well, I want everybody to cast their eyes down to the bottom of the screen for a second. They're not at my Allen Iverson jumper peeking through on my shot here, but who got hot? I want to take us back to your school days. We all remember it. You've got your long summer holidays for us here in Australia. That was getting back to school late January, early February. Phil, some weird mid-year summer shenanigans that you were dealing with in the Northern Hemisphere. But there was always the same idea. You always wanted to look bang on for day one. Bang on, school's back, day of return. Who looks like they've had a good summer? They've got a tan on. Maybe they got a lift on. They pick up a new sport. They go out to, for us back then, it would have been they go out to surf, dive, and ski or general pants and get themselves a new wardrobe. What were we seeing? Who was turning up looking schmick, looking and improved the best version of themselves, Phil? So that's where I want you to take your mind back. So who got hot?
Laws, who got hot? Tell us.
All right, let's go right off the bat. For me, I'm going to the Kansas City Chiefs. No, Patrick Mahomes didn't get hot. He was already hot. Travis Kelce, same situation. Let's go to the backfield. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a very underwhelming first couple of seasons in the NFL.
Little double take on Clyde Edwards-Helaire there, Laws? Little triple take, perhaps?
Listen, I may have doubled down and I may have been doubly hurt, but it was great to see. You heard after the season, he wasn't totally healthy, and you wonder, is that a bit of, window dressing? Are we really shining out what was just an underwhelming performance? He looked healthy. He looked definitive as a runner, decisive a runner, downhill, out of shotgun, even bouncing outside. The timing with the offensive line looked so much better. And yes, with no Tyreek Hill in that Kansas City Chiefs offense, when we got down to the red zone, some of these the underarm underthrows there, or the underarm throws from Patrick Mahomes, they're finding their ways to number 25, leaking out into the flat, an area that Tyreek Hill certainly did some damage there during his time with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I love what we saw from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's nice to believe that maybe it was health. Maybe it was just not being able to get his feet and his legs under him at 100% or close to over the first couple of years in the NFL. And now we see him with that dominant, very heavily invested offensive line, the front there for Mahomes and co to work behind, that he's taking full advantage of that. And nice to see him get an early breather for a running back. In seasons past, we've seen him come off the field early. Maybe it was injury. Maybe sometimes it was just, it seemed form. This was, hey, great work. Phenomenal stuff in the passing game and the running game. Take a breather. You and Travis Kelce rest the snaps for later in the season, and we'll get some other guys like Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco, everybody's favorite sleeper in their fantasy drafts, on for some real life snaps.
Yeah, well, quickly, I'm I like that Pacheco got 16 touches, but 12 of those were in the fourth quarter when neither Edwards-Helaire or McKinnon saw the field at all. So if anybody's looking for a waiver wire pickup, I would tread with caution with Pacheco. But Laz, otherwise, I completely agree with what you're saying. Protecting Mahomes, not just having 5 touchdowns and 0 picks, but doing so with 0 sacks. And the respect the running game commanded. Mahomes went 11 for 14 for 108 yards off of play action. 4 of his 5 touchdowns came off play action. So even when he was dumping down to a running back, it was either off of a fake handoff to that running back, just giving the defense extra things to consider. So I'll do a little triple take on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But for me, who got hot? Someone, maybe looks good in yoga pants. Saquon Barkley. Laz, did he get his braces off or something? And maybe the knee brace is what we're going with. Saquon Barkley, the most rush yards he's had in any game since Christmas week of 2019. And the turning point in that game, the Giants go into Nashville, get an upset. I wanted to take the Giants plus 5.5 in that, but the number didn't. If it was 6.5, I would have taken it because Daniel Jones as a road underdog against the spread is actually covers pretty regularly. But 5.5, I was just scared we'd get some 26-20 finish there. But 68-yard scamper. And you gave me a hard time, by the way, Rowan. I see a comment coming in on Christian Kirk. We'll get to him in a second. I do want to acknowledge that because, welcome to the show in Jacksonville. Nearly got it done. But Saquon Barkley, you gave me a hard time because I talked about the Giants in the second half and Barkley having 7.7 yards before contact. Per carry, 7.7 yards before contact per carry. And Laz, you said what? To try and rain on my parade when we were talking on the call. You said what? It's skewed?
It may have been impacted by a couple of big scampers. It may have, but it was still great to see him in full flight.
One in particular. But if you take that 68-yard carry out of the picture, he's still 4.2 yards before contact per tote. And give him credit. The Titans safety Hooker had him dead to rights on that play at the 10 or 12-yard mark. Beautiful play design from Brian Dable on that offense, pulling the center and guard around. Saquon splits the difference, and he's one-on-one with the safety and just beats him to an edge when he didn't have an angle. That's why I think Saquon got hot, not only doing it out of the backfield and providing the game-changing play, but the 2-point conversion when they basically said, here, underhand pass, but you got to drag 3 defenders over the goal line. And he tied for the team high with 6 receptions on 7 targets. That offense is going through Saquon come hell or high water. And with 21 points in the second half on the road in an upset win over Tennessee, maybe the Giants are a 7 or 8-win team that we're just not aware of. And, credit the eye candy who is Saquon Barkley.
All right, let's not get too carried away putting them in the wild card mix here. But I tell you what, that's an impressive showing, a gutsy performance to get in a tussle with the 1 seed from the AFC. However bona fide you think the 1 seed was last year on the AFC side of things in Tennessee, that is who they were up against. And they gutted it out in the end. Certainly in a performance that we haven't, and a kind of mentality and the ability to grasp that game that we haven't seen under previous regimes recently, certainly, when it comes to the Giants and their organization. But I want to kick it to, let's touch on Christian Kirk there from a set. We get Rowan Potter throwing in Christian Kirk. Changing schools gives him an opportunity to finally be the cool kid he always wanted to be. And we all remember folks like that, that went and found their vibe and their happy place, perhaps at a different school, or perhaps they arrived at your school with a change up in energy. And it was a welcome mix to the year group. But I think Christian Kirk was one of the bright spots for a inefficient and one that got away when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars and their performance. There's a couple of trips down into Commanders territory that they could have come away with more points from, or points at all, that really let this one slip through. I thought Trevor Lawrence was let down by his receivers at times. He did miss a touchdown pass, looked a nice little leak out route down the right sideline that he just overcooked a little bit. There was a series where they were trying to march down there late in this game and really put the foot on the throat, or had their foot on the throat of the Commanders, and his receivers did a terrible job bringing in some really catchable balls that would have kept that momentum going and really got them probably out of there with a win. But Kirk productive going over the century mark, and really he's going to have to be. I believe that we're going to see a fantastic Trevor Lawrence this season. And if we're going to do that, Kirk is the odds-on man to go, 1,100 yards plus this season. But sadly, not a winning performance. But Kirk certainly finding his feet and some good mojo there, considering, when we look at his former home and what's going on with the Arizona Cardinals, wasn't a happy time for them, the guys out of the desert. My next one, who got hot though? And this is a full-fledged. Sometimes you get hot doing solo work. Sometimes it's a group effort. Sometimes someone comes in and is like, right, guys, right, girls, I found this boot camp. I found this trip we're going to go on, surfing trip. We're going to get tanned. This was the full, and I'm touching on my own experience here. This was the full go up to Byron Bay, go up to Watergoes Beach for the last 2 weeks before school holidays are over. And you can make whatever jokes you want out of that. I know Vaucluse is on the tip of your tongue, Philip. This was the full-fledged group trip there. Von Miller arriving with the Buffalo Bills defensive front that was not, I don't think anybody would accuse the Bills front of being the sexiest pass rushers, most explosive guys that are going to be getting 18, 19, 20 sacks, really threatening there. They were a good, solid assignment sound unit with some injection of young talent, guys like Gregory So, but they had not reached that dominant performance. What we saw in the season opener, though, talk about a force multiplier. Von Miller, yes, he contributed what he did on the score sheet, a double ghost move against the chip help and the the edge protector to get to the quarterback. That's one thing, but we're seeing it, leak into the production for AJ Epinesa, leak into Jordan Phillips. It's really flowing through that defensive front. So the whole Bills defensive line, that rotation that is deep and that is going to help them in their charge to prove that they are truly bona fide and deserved Super Bowl favorites. The boys, the group there, absolutely, they got the surf in, they got the tan in, they got probably some lifting in. This was a full-fledged who got hot. These boys turned up week one, day one, the literal day one of the season, looking very much in shape.
Yeah, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss for Von Miller. I think any criticism about his contract, 6 years, $120 million US.
It's really not. Yeah, it's really not. It's a 2-year deal, and then we'll see.
Right, but that's exactly it. It's a short-term win now. We had very few weaknesses, did the Buffalo Bills. It was the corner opposite Tre'Davious White, which they addressed with Kyer Elam in the first round, a pick you and I were both very fond of, and being able to more regularly get after the passer, have a true winning edge rusher. And Von Miller, when healthy, is absolutely that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's a new haircut. Maybe it's some extra time in the gym. But I'd say Von Miller stayed hot. It's not like he hasn't been hot. Looking to be the first player in NFL history, if he does so with the Bills, to be on the field for 3 Super Bowl winning teams on separate franchises. Matt Millen has won rings with 3 different teams, but he was inactive for the last game, I believe with, what was his third one? It may have been Washington was his third one. And then Kenyon Barner has 3 wins with 3 teams, but I think he was on the field for one of them. The Eagles won in Super Bowl 52. Nobody's ever won a Super Bowl winning the game, being on the field, contributing to the game for 3 different teams. Von Miller could be the first, having won Super Bowl 50 with the Denver Broncos and, of course, Super Bowl 56 a year ago with the LA Rams at SoFi Stadium. Okay, Laz, who else got hot? We talked about Christian Kirk going to a new school. Michael Thomas is the one that, just kind of left school and was hot when they left. And then, a couple of years later, I guess they're back living in the school district, maybe moved in with mom again or moved in with dad, and every bit as hot, if not maybe even a little hotter. The Saints came into a fourth quarter against a team in the Falcons that we expected and still expect to contend for a number 1 pick. They have some issues there in Atlanta. The Saints all time went down 16 or more points in a fourth quarter entering that game. 0-208 had not been kind to the Saints in that scenario. And then here comes Michael Thomas, doesn't just get his first regular season touchdown since 22nd of December 2019, which coincidentally is the same day that my first yoga pant wearing hottie, Saquon Barkley, had his previous career high. So same day is the last Michael Thomas touchdown and the only day on which that Saquon Barkley had more rush yards. But then Thomas adds another. Laz, the fourth quarter. I know we're getting kind of long with these. I'll be quick. Fourth quarter, Michael Thomas, 4 catches on 4 targets for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns, including what proved the one that put them in range for Will Lutz's game winner. So Michael Thomas, easy on the eyes still, unless you're with Atlanta, who has now lost their last 5 at home against their divisional rival. So let's see. Brad's got one with us real quick, Laz. Do you want to comment on Thomas? I'll let you decide. Are we going straight to Kyler?
All right. Thomas quickly. I think this might be the university version. Did he go on exchange for a year and a half, came back, and it's not the full-fledged change of everything. Oh, is that a really nice stubbles come in?
It's working.
Looking a little more something's working. Really nice, a little more cultured look. He's come back to the fray, and this is what we get. So I love the shout for Thomas. Brad comes in. Can we say Kyler Murray didn't attend day one of school because he was in detention for not doing his homework? Brad not letting any off-season storylines or preseason storylines lie in rest there.
Yeah.
Look, that was a rough outing. I'm not going to put a whole bunch of that on Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
He still had plenty of impressive throws in that game. That was outclassed, outmatched on all three, really all three phases of the ball there, including, Harrison Butker hitting one from 50 off one step with a dodgy ankle after a nasty roll of that off a kickoff.
It's a good time to point out our scroller on the bottom too, because I believe we have the Cardinals in our This Is Fine power rankings, and throughout the year, a new little toy on this show, us being able to create our own rankings. We hate boring ones. This Is Fine, the dog sipping coffee with the apartment on fire. Let's not worry. We got the kickers and OT, the Patriots. Arizona Cardinals are in there at number 5. I think that's about right. They had issues with Nuke Hopkins' absence. But Kyler Murray was running for his life. He had some head-scratching decisions last year when under pressure. That appeared to continue. And it seems like the Chiefs may have hit in the first round because George Karlaftis had a very solid game with their pass rush in what was just an overwhelming win for Kansas City. To me, that game says a little more about Kansas City post Tyreek Hill than it does about the Cardinals. But it is getting a little toasty in that apartment. This is fine. It might not be if they can't figure out how to keep Kyler Murray from being under duress.
All right, my last one. You see the comment down there. We've got it coming in from Stu. Will Bill Belichick ever be able to get out of Tua Tagovailoa's pocket? And that brings me to my last shout out here. This isn't for Tua. This isn't the full, look, oh my God, he's come back and his arms are busting out of the T-shirts there. He hasn't got quads for days or anything like that.
Been there.
Yeah. Oh, I knew you were going to enjoy this segment. And later, I want to hear what your regime before getting back for school holiday or summer holidays was for the start of the school year. But when it comes to Tua, this is more like, new frames, something subtle. Did he go from just the black wire frames are gone and we've got some sort of opaque pastel? Maybe it's an obscure circle shaped frame. Something is working for Tua and it looks different. No. Tua's not throwing 60-yard bombs, and you can, throw all the comments on the Miami Dolphins Twitter feed and react as much as you want to underthrown balls to Tyreek Hill. But the man looked on time, quick, decisive, throws with touch, throws with accuracy, and you can just see the fit in the McDaniel offense down there with the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa 4-0 against almost said the other name aligned with the New England Patriots, 4-0 against Bill Belichick's Patriots team.
Yeah,
what he was able to do, you look at whether it's working out a shotgun or from under center, we're talking about 3-step drops, immediately getting there and firing to a speedy target. Surprise, surprise, that's what they've invested in. We know Tyreek Hill's there. Jalen Waddle with a huge 4th down, not just conversion, but splits three defenders. The Waddle dance, the Penguin Waddle dance. You see it in the stands, but Tua Tagovailoa splitting 3 defenders there on 4th down and an instant throw before any of the DBs were able to close on that route. Waddle does what he does, secures the catch, heads north, takes it to the house. We also see Cedric Wilson getting featured. See Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert doing work out of the backfield. Speed everywhere. And for a quarterback that is smart, accurate, and can work on time and is healthy, this is a great system for Tua. And I really am looking forward to the narrative changing, criticisms about what his upside was, what his potential was. And he's come back from summer with a more defined, more decisive, and a little change-up look, and I'm feeling it.
Yeah, just adding a little protein to the diet and even just, upper body workout, just, beach muscles. For him, it was marginal improvement, I should say, but it was improvement on the intermediate throws and a couple deeper throws. Let's see, he's not Patrick Mahomes putting it 55 yards on a wire, but if you can hit your target when open, on time, 12 to 15 yards upfield, you will do the job. And McDaniel doing a terrific job, in my opinion, scheming for Tua. He was better on 3rd down, better when there was a standard pass rush. Conversely, will Bill Belichick ever be able to clamber out of Tua's pocket? Tua, the first quarterback ever to win 4 straight starts against a Bill Belichick coach team, which is insane. Mac Jones was fine if he was throwing behind the line of scrimmage. He was fine if he was doing long handoffs. But when he got to those even intermediate throws, the offense didn't have an answer. So I think his numbers, you look at his accuracy, it's going to be a little bit deceptive because the the throws that he was getting, it was requiring a lot more work after the catch than that receiving unit is capable of doing. It's why it was such a lopsided win for Miami.
It was all in front of that defense, whether it was behind line of scrimmage or throws, in 3rd and 10, 3rd and long, and it was 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And don't sleep on that Dolphins defense. There's been nice investment there. There's no shortage of athleticism there. And they closed and they hunted as a team.
They're going to be a fun team to watch.
They're absolutely going to be a fun team to watch.
I don't think they're going to mess with the Bills, but for them, it's going to be, can they, in what will be AFC West cannibalism, can they navigate their way, win games like this, beat New England at home, beat the Jets twice, maybe get one in Foxborough, and then get to 10 wins? That would be a massive success for them.
I think they do. I got asked for my AFC, playoff teams, all 7 of them, and I had them in the 7 slot sneaking in the wild card. So I believe that they can do that. An update in talent and coaching, a huge plus there. And when we do think later in the season, some of those tough matchups, when you can throw a combination, Byron Jones wasn't even out there, who's a fine cover corner, but you throw the combinations of Xavier Howard and Javon Holland roaming as your star corner and your roaming safety back there. You saw them combine for an outstanding interception on an attempted deep pass from Mac Jones. That type of talent, those guys can be erasers and they can be game changers. And when we do get down to the nitty gritty, when it's good teams versus good teams, that's when those type of factors start to show up and can really be decisive. So there's a reason they're high up on our good vibes rankings, which you catch scrolling along the bottom there. But for all you Finns fans out there, you should be feeling a certain way, feeling a good way this Tuesday morning, knowing we've got one in the bag there. Now, one more.
One more from my guy.
One more for you.
One more.
Yep, one more for you.
And this isn't so much a person. It is something that has been lacking, ironically, for a team whose hashtag is fly twice, fly Eagles, fly. The Philadelphia Eagles have not had a wide receiver exceed 1,000 yards since 2014, despite the extra game, despite all the aerial rule changes that encourage offense. Jeremy Maclin in 2014 was the last wide receiver for the Eagles to exceed 1,000 yards. In a 16-game season, that's about 65, 64 yards a game. 17-game season, it's a little bit less. Well, Jeremy Maclin is long gone, but AJ Brown, on his debut, tied a career high with 155 receiving yards, 5th most for any debuting receiver in his first game with a team in NFL history. Laz, it wasn't just 10 catches on 13 targets. The bugaboo for this team, the number 1 rush offense in the NFL a year ago, can they have any kind of vertical threat? And much like Tua, I'm not saying it's a categorical shift like, some rom-com from the 90s, right, where they drop the hair down, take off the glasses, and suddenly in walks a supermodel. But it is a notable improvement when, on passes of 10 or more air yards, A.J. Brown's numbers are as follows: 5 catches on 5 targets for 118, including one where he big brothered poor Detroit Lions cornerback from about the 12-yard line down to the 5. So wide receiver 1 in Philly, finally, I don't know if it's just, late blooming, but showing up, they got a little hot. And I said preseason on I think it was a Bet365 segment on SportsCenter, one of my favorite receiving markets was the over 999.5 yards for AJ Brown. Would he be 1,000-yard receiver? Bang on. He's averaged, I think it's like 999.5 actually is what his average is in his last 2 seasons. I feel very good about that tip right now. I'm not saying he's going for 155 a game, but I don't think this is the last time he's in triple digits. I think it's something that he can start to do with regularity. And then that threat opens up the run game nicely for the Eagles, who are now and should be the odds-on favorite to win the NFC East.
I think they are, and I think it's an example of, we can look around the NFC East and ask, what have you done for your quarterback lately? What have you done to invest? The Commanders bring in Carson Wentz, and we know Terry McLaurin's there.
Jahan Dotson.
They've tried in the backfield. They've faced some adversity there. Jahan Dotson having a huge game. But you look at a team like Dallas, which has gone the other way on that front, and I can see there's a comment in there that is not getting on screen, which is Phil Laurie. Phil, ask Laurie about the Dallas Cowboys, and we're not touching on that yet. you can see, there's a reason I haven't let you hit that button, but you can see where they rank in the This Is Fine burning house power rankings that we have on the ticker there. But the thing that caught me, yes, massive yardage total, but there was one throw and it was a in-breaking route. Nothing new when it comes to AJ Brown's production or where he does damage. An in-breaking route over the middle of the field at about the 15 to 18 yard mark that Jalen Hurts hit him in stride and on time. And Jalen Hurts hitting people in time and in stride over that part of the field has not been part of his game. That's an area of the field that he notoriously struggles with. We will see how that plays out over the rest of the season. But his ability to go through reads, and AJ Brown's probably won on his reads on that route concept, but his ability to make clean reads, see that part of the field and operate decisively and in tempo with how it's designed has been a huge, huge bugaboo for those that have watched his tape and for Eagles fans that want him to take the next step. It's not an easy step to take, but no, this isn't a quarterback elevating the talent around him. This is what happens when you help your quarterback. You have wide receiver talent that elevates the QB around him. So credit to the Eagles for that aggressive move here. That gets us out of This Is Hot. A lot of hotness. I was
just gonna add to your point. Hitting AJ Brown in stride. He had 60 yards after the catch, which over 10 catches is an extra 6 yards per catch. So consistently hitting him in stride, and with Devontae Smith out, it's having a wide receiver one that is predictably your top target. It's something that is enviable for a team that should get to 10 or 11 wins and win that division.
We got a question here before we get to Champed. This is a question in, what's your secret for beating robot opponents? I believe this is fantasy football related. I may have some added intel on this question. Beating automated opponents, I think what they lack in human instinct and what they lack in nuance and emotion, and just those sense of gut feelings that you might have managing your fantasy roster. I think that's what could be telling. I think that's what could be a difference when you go up against something that is purely crunching by numbers. Numbers mean a lot. We are in the age of analytics in the NFL. That has been a narrative that has been building and building over the past 5 to 10 years. But there's still, when it comes to personnel decisions, something as personal as your fantasy lineup, that's where you as a human can elevate above any sort of auto pick, auto draft, auto set, robot, Bender from Futurama style presence in your fantasy league. But let's get on, Phil.
Laz, I'm waving the white flag for the robot apocalypse. I am very polite to Siri and Alexa because I know how that story ends. So I just want to be one of the humans that turns heel and helps the robots win. So just for all the robots out there, fantasy or otherwise, I will be on your side once you have the upper hand.
There you go. Robot champion, Phil Murphy, which brings us to, appropriately, coming back, returning, people's favorite champ. It is time to hand out some Righto champions from week 1 in the NFL. Phil, you'll kick this off. I know, being the warm-hearted, big-hearted guy, this will be full of mirth and laughter. So where are you going for champ? Who gets a good champing from this season opening weekend or Monday, NFL, Australian time? Who cops it?
Well, I feel bad, Laurie, for somebody like Terry McLaurin because he's played for one team in his NFL career, and it's had in 4 seasons 3 different names. So hopefully we are set on the Washington Commanders. It was not a popular choice in and around D.C. I went to university not far from where this team calls home. In fact, their practice facility was about maybe 25, 30 kilometers from my campus. But we lovingly called it Ashburnistan. Because of just some of the internal struggles therein. Well, that was not helped in week 1. New branding, new gear, fans coming, trying to be loud, a winnable game against the Jaguars. They were the favorite in that game, a slight favorite, but a favorite nonetheless. So in an official team truck parked right outside the stadium, they had a mug for sale with the Commanders W and an outline of Washington behind the W. The Washington Commanders. However, Laurie, they picked the wrong Washington. Righto champion. Now, little lesson. This is the outline of Washington, D.C. It is a square-shaped district, and I don't fault a lot of Americans for getting this wrong because it's very small. This whole area is 179 square kilometers. All right, this is geographically, technically in Maryland. The Commanders' home field was about here. Their practice facility is way over here, and the Ravens are actually right here. So it's If I gave, I don't know, 100 Americans and told them to draw Washington, D.C., most of them would do like a square, but they wouldn't get it quite right. This is Washington State. It is about 1,000 times the size, 184,830 square kilometers. Washington State is 3,700 kilometers northwest. The Broncos and Seahawks are getting ready to play right here tonight. It's about a 6-hour flight for me. It's about as far, I don't know, Melbourne to Perth is how far away. So this is the logo they had, the background with the Commanders W, and they were selling this at an officially licensed team truck outside the stadium. Very quickly, Twitter caught notice, and as quickly, a team representative went and absconded all the mugs because and it's not the first time that's happened. They sold vanity license plates before with the same wrong Washington background. And listen, look, you see the little kind of square like it is. Maybe if you just kind of cover this part, it might fault for it. They also sold sweatshirts when I lived there that had the wrong Washington that were a very popular number amongst the middle schoolers, when they were a previous nickname. So, Righto champion, the Washington Commanders. That is my geography lesson, not just for our friends in Australia and New Zealand, but apparently those who design vanity mugs for the Commanders.
All right. I'm going to go with a little more serious note here. When it comes to champing, there can be righto champion, all right, champ. There can be simmer down, champ. And this is the ultimate simmer down. Dolphins, Patriots.
Literally.
One of the great envies of Australia, New Zealand sports fans, NFL fans, college football fans is when we get to see the atmosphere around game day over there, the absolute festival that is tailgating. A great experience, so much fun. If you haven't had the chance to go over and do it, and you do get the chance to go to the States during football season, any sporting season when they get around it, but I know for NFL and college football time, it is a sensational.
Zoo. It is a zoo.
It is a real vibe to catch. A great time. But the tailgating scene, Dolphins, Patriots, we get some poor fellow that goes to the game has decided that, look, I think everything's right, but it's getting close to game time. I've got to get out of here. And he left his grill on in the car park, his barbecue, if you call it in Australia, but he left the heat on. He left the fire going. Charcoal, there you go. And he returns, and many others return to that part of the car park with almost a dozen cars basically incinerated. This is the ultimate simmer down champion. This is a please be safe champion, but wow, if you're looking to get off to a rough start to the season, and there are some teams that have got off to a rough start to the season, again, catch the This Is Fine power rankings scrolling along the bottom there, Cowboys. But if no one gets off to a rougher start of the season than the guy who's responsible for about 11 vehicles going up in flames because he didn't turn the charcoal or didn't get the flames going off the charcoal before heading inside for a few frosty ones, catching a hopefully for him, it was a Dolphins fan, and he was getting a Dolphins victory out of that performance.
Yeah, Laws, I have nothing to add. I've seen some things on the Monday night circuit. One of my responsibilities at Monday Night Football before I would be on the sideline was to go to the tailgate pregame. ESPN Social Digital in the U.S. has a pregame tailgate show, and I would do a segment where I was just in a crowd of people. COVID be damned, apparently, because the people were just climbing all over me with my microphone, doing a game preview, giving the energy of the setting. It was a good time. I've seen people jump through tables in Buffalo. I've seen people consume way too much alcohol in one 30-second window in, Kansas City, Baltimore, Nashville, a few places. They were all at least safe with it. This was a really stupid mistake in what will be a very costly mistake because the insurance for 11 exploded vehicles. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. That is the real thing, that somebody didn't leave early and this fire started whilst tailgating was going on. It seems like it's something that happened well into the game. But I just imagine him thinking back and being like, oh yeah, in the second quarter, I did hear sirens outside and fire trucks, and guess that's what that was. So that is the ultimate Righto champion. Champ is a very frequent segment on the show. I don't think that will be topped. At least I hope not.
I hope not too. I hope that our champings are generally slightly more embarrassing for a giggle standpoint, and not for oh my god, how much is that going to cost?
Things we can do.
Everybody's safe, but
By the way, I put way too much effort into this.
No, you put the perfect, just right amount of effort, and that's not a sponsorship from Just Right, the cereal brand, but just right amount of effort. I thoroughly enjoy that. Enjoyed your artistic skills because Lord knows I have absolutely none when it comes to drawing. But okay, before we get
that's a future segment. Laurie Doodles.
Okay. Rated G. We are a Disney company. We've got one more question before we kick off to our next one. Comes in from Toby. Andy, Eric, and Pat, the greatest offensive mind triple threat of all time. # GOATs. I mean, look.
All time is a long time.
Yeah. We can go back to the Ohio River offense. We can go to which then had ties to the birth of what we saw from Bill Walsh going on out in the West Coast. We can talk about the greatest show on turf, what was happening with Kurt Warner and the Rams. There's been some phenomenal offenses. But in response to this, what I loved about this, everyone wanted to talk about, what are they going to do without Tyreek Hill's crazy speed? 4.2 speed. He plays above the rim. He makes defenses so scared they have to back off. He creates a crater of a kind of impact across the secondary. What are we going to do? They took the resources from the offload of Tyreek Hill. They invested in the front on both defense and offense. There's some added additions to the secondary there, but they basically said, okay, look, we were succeeding. We were explosive with a massive amount of chaos, with a lot of chaos and a lot of off-schedule elements that made us a little erratic and saw the stalling of that offense for huge chunks of the last season as teams adapted and we saw more deep brackets trying to take away those big, dominant, deep overs, big sail routes and stuff that they started to squash on. That was the Tyreek Hill element. And then how teammates were able to build off that and take advantage of that. We're going to still be explosive. We're still going to be multifaceted, but we're going to do this within not so much its structure, but not in a boring way, almost in a more on-time, planned, it's still diverse way. You still saw Travis Kelce featured. You saw McCole Hardman's speed taken advantage of. The new additions, Juju Smith-Schuster, back to doing what he does best, working over the middle of the field, finding sweet spots in zone coverage and picking up 10, 12, 14-yard gains. We saw that again. We saw MVS being utilized. We saw how Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a healthy one, and some of his backfield mates, how they were working in more the way they were chipping and working to designated parts of the flat to get little easy dump offs from Patrick Mahomes and then turned it into yardage. This was a phenomenal, the word is evolution, new stage for this Chiefs offense that, yes, we're used to. We still did see Mahomes, a little not a rear naked choke, a rear naked spin, out of some pressure and a little sidearm sling. We did still see that. That was still there, but only 3 or 4 times, not 12 times. And and not him doing it out of clean pockets, because that's the only way they could create chaos, or the key way that they could create chaos and huge chunk gains. This was a phenomenal step forward for this team. This is so exciting. It's not the same explosion, but I think it has, you can look at the numbers, you can watch the tape. It is the same amount of effective dominance on offense. And it is a massive credit to how Mahomes has grown in the league and the plan. And I'll throw, yes, Eric, and yes, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, throw Brett Veach in there as well for what they've done from a personnel standpoint in the front office.
Yeah, Laz, not much to add. But remember, last season, this Chiefs team started 3-4, and we were writing the obituary. And then November hit, they found a gear and took off, and were the Chiefs of old, and really should have represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. They let a 3-touchdown lead go by the wayside, especially with some careless end-of-half clock management. It should have been a more lopsided advantage against the Bengals, and despite Joe Burrow's terrific second-half comeback. Patrick Mahomes, despite the variables mentioned, absent Tyreek Hill, 5 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks. 3rd time in his career he's done that. Nobody else ever has done it 3 times in their career. Mahomes turns 27 on Saturday. So while still age 26, he has done 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, more than anybody ever. He is just entering his prime. They've invested a lot around him, invested a lot in him financially, but I think that contract will age very well. It was very eye-opening when we saw the gross figures of a decade-long $500 million contract, but seeing how quarterback salaries are going to increase over the next 2, 3, 5 years, his age 32, 33 seasons when he's very much still an elite quarterback are going to be a comparative discount. Now you want to talk personnel, they get 5 first-round picks for Tyreek Hill and didn't replace him with a like person, but it got a couple pieces that kind of do what he does and still being able to, with effective play action, attack all 3 levels of the defense, even 4 if you want to go behind the line of scrimmage, and then the ability to improvise. It's on the shortest of short lists for most terrifying offensive arsenals we've ever seen. I was surprised. A lot of like football power index stuff that did not have the Chiefs as a favorite in the AFC West. To me, they are, despite the improvements in LA, in Vegas, and in Denver, and we'll see those. We'll get the first look at the last of those tonight. The Chiefs are still not only, to me, above, but maybe not head and shoulders like they were, but still a head above the rest of that division, which could well be the deepest in the league.
All right, you mentioned head above there, and earlier you gave us a ladies and gentlemen intro, and we're going to get you to do that again now as we get to our next segment, new segment, where we recognize the most dominant duo, the most dominant pairing of the week. This is a linear title. Someone has to come and take that off you next week, and we tap into some heroes, perhaps some new age outlaws from the late 90s in a time near and dear to both our hearts. But Phil, I'm going to kick this over to you as you warm up the mic for our new segment. I'm not even going to say what it's called. I'm going to leave that all to you.
Well, it's on the topic part, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, ESPN proudly brings to you the NFL Brekkie Show Tag Team Champions of the World. The Road Dogg, Laurie Horesh. The Badass, Phil Murphy. The New Age Outlaws. And if you ain't down with that, Laws, then I got 2 words for you. Your turn. Those are my 2 words.
I was going to say Disney Show.
Your turn are my
tune
2
in.
words.
Yeah, you tune in.
Go first.
Send questions. Yeah.
Send questions.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 words I had.
Shout out to Billy Gunn. Okay, so Phil, our tag team champions for week 1. There's some contenders. You could argue that there's some contenders from the same team. For me, I thought an honorable mention, I'll shout out, was seeing the new presence of Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter caving in either side of the edge for the Minnesota Vikings, who, the Purple People Eaters might just be back, but who gets the nod? Who gets the nod as the most dominant, fierce-striking duo, the true tag team champions of the world for week 1 to kick off this segment and to carry the belt into week 2?
For me, I'm going Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. Justin Jefferson led the NFL in receiving yards last year. Kevin O'Connell led the Rams offense to a Super Bowl. He comes over, takes over as head coach in Minnesota, brings over his passing game coordinator, Wes Phillips. So I guess Wes Phillips is the X-Pac to the Triple H and Heartbreak Kid of Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. But I get in that same Bet365 segment I alluded to, I took Justin Jefferson to exceed, I think his number was like 1,350 for season receiving yards. So that was laughably low. I tipped him at $9.50 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. If he stays healthy, he will. In fact, I think he might be the first receiver in NFL history to eclipse 2,000 yards in a season. He needs 113 point something more per game. In this game, welcome to week 1, Green Bay. 9 catches, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, 9 catches on 11 targets. Laz, it's his 5th time eclipsing 150 yards. That is Jefferson. Only Randy Moss had more at this young of an age. Mm-hmm. Randy Moss.
Who was he playing for at that time?
He's Lizzo's new man on the Minnesota Vikings. But Laz, what scared me about this and what made this for me the tag team champions is this seamless schematic integration of how they were able to get the focal point, number 18 on Minnesota, wearing a big purple jersey. That's the guy you need to cover. He averaged 4 yards of separation on his 11 targets. Laz, when he had I'll stop there. 4 yards of separation. We'll do metric because I know my audience. About 3.5 meters of separation between him and the nearest defender on average for 11 targets for the best receiver on the field, full stop on either team now comfortably that Devontae Adams is in Vegas. That's his second most average yards per target in his career when he's been targeted 10 times. So that's the introduction. Green Bay knew that was the best chance for him to be beaten. When Justin Jefferson had at least 3 yards of separation, so now we're talking like, a shade under 3 meters, when he had at least 3 yards of separation, 6 catches on 6 targets for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is 13 yards per target and a touchdown on a third of the times they looked his way. That is terrifying, and it is why they are the tag team champions of the week, at least for now. The most feared duo with X-Pac there, distracting the referee every now and again to, further enable their dominance.
I'm with you in totality on this one. This was an earthquake felt throughout not just the NFC North, the NFC side of things in the NFL as a whole. What they're able to do, you couldn't help but think back to the Rams. You couldn't help. I'm going to throw a comment up here. The suggestion that this could be a contender there. Thank you very much, Stuart. Well appreciated.
That is the dark squash match, is what that is. That is the commercial. After the show, give the fans something to cheer for the tag team champions. Have them come out and defend their belt.
Yeah, please join us next week for our Rush Power rankings and see where Cooper lands on that one. But when it comes to the tag team champions of the world, look, you can't help but think back to some of those images we saw of Cooper Kupp. Everyone knows where this ball's going to go. Everyone knows he's a focal point of that passing game.
Good luck.
Why is he 10 yards open, 20 yards downfield, breaking towards the sideline? That's what that's the tree O'Connell comes from. It's the coaching family he comes from, and it's a production we saw in week 1. So not much more to add to what you laid down there. A deserving belt holder, the two of them. Who knows? Perhaps we'll see a championship belt make its appearance on the show.
Kirk Cousins as China. We'll just stick with the whole DX thing.
You've gone early DX here. You've gone before HBK got phased out and had the back injury. And
I'm an OG.
The new age. You are an OG, OG. Even before we saw the Road Dogg and Badass make their full-time inclusion into Generation X. Anyway, we've taken our way down that rabbit hole. Well, okay, that's the champions. A final segment of today. We have a few lined up for this season. We will get there. We have a few more. Just know that coming up in future episodes is a segment known as Tinfoil Phil, where Phil puts his conspiracy theory hat on and just has a look through what we're figuring out in the NFL. Maybe he's pointing to the sky like a fellow ESPN colleague of ours, wondering what's going on in some parts of the NFL. We will get to that as the storyline.
The NFL controls the weather. They did in Chicago.
There you go. As you can see, he's already got the alfoil out. He's building it as we speak. I will throw one question out there before we do get to our propaganda for Monday Night Football. We've got one question. It's a good one, and I want to throw it out there. Let's overreact to week 1. From Brad, comes in. You can't take Aaron Donald, but who would you start a defense with if you could pick any player? Is Micah Parsons in that conversation? Phil, where do we kick this off? Who are you taking? One defensive player to kick off your roster.
Golly. For me, if not Aaron Donald, which it would be the reflexive response, Micah Parsons is certainly valid as defensive rookie of the year. He's going to be somebody who is the defensive captain for a team. He can rush the passer. He can tackle well. He's going to have a lot of time on the field for the Cowboys this year, I fear. Maybe I would go with, if he's fit, TJ Watt. You got somebody who can get 22 sacks in a season, but reflexively, I'd lean Parsons. Maybe I'll shoot my head off the pillow tonight and realize I completely overlooked somebody, but Parsons certainly in that conversation, if not my pick altogether.
I mean, the guy was one of the few bright spots for a pretty objectively horrible performance from the Dallas Cowboys in week 1, but he took down Tom Brady twice. We get 2 sacks on Tom Brady. He's causing pressures, and those were huge moments where the Cowboys offense was stuck. They were needing to stay in this contest, and these were back-to-back. This was 3rd down in scoring position in the red zone, knocking on the door, and he comes up with, those are 4-point plays. I believe in one of them it was actually a 7-point play because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers missed the ensuing field goal on 4th down. So, look at that. He created 10 points in 7 plus 4 equals 11. 11 points in 2 plays. He saved that team.
So it could have been 30-3, which would have been
Probably more appropriate.
This is fine power
probably,
rankings. They'd be in their own category because they're already
absolutely. It'd just be one of one. So yeah, I think Micah Parsons is a shout. You throw in the versatility as well, considering that it's not, you can send him off the edge. He can play off-ball linebacker. He can rush up the middle. You can set him on stunts. You can loop him. And the athleticism is terrifying, and he's still scratching the surface for being young at the position. Okay, let's go. That's about as nice a thing you're going to say about the Cowboys, who are deservingly right at the top of our This Is Fine power rankings, an organizational operation in absolute chaos, floundering, crumbling, and wondering what on earth is next. And that's the short version of my rant. But let's get to it. Monday Night Football, propaganda. Props to have a look at. We got kickoff, Phil, in just under an hour. So time enough for you to jump out there and get on these, or time enough for you to go, these guys don't know what they're talking about when it comes to these props. Let's go the other way. Let's bet against and cash in. But have a listen, Phil. All right. Lay this one out to you. You're the defending propaganda champion. The Skyline Chili coming my way.
Of the regular season.
Of the regular season.
And the Super Bowl.
Yes, and you lost the Super Bowl draft comfortably when both my teams made it and fought off, but we won't get into that. Okay, Phil, hit me with your Monday Night Football. Prop number one, what are we going with? Kick us off.
Prop number one, it is Geno Smith in the spotlight. I know when he was starting with the Jets, he had some high passing yard totals. This market varies, so we do advocate you shopping around. I've seen it in the U.S. at 208.5. I've seen it at 211.5. The market and the payout is reflective of that. So you get a little bit of a discount if you go under 211 vis-a-vis 208. But I'm going to go under 208.5 passing yards for Geno Smith at $1.91. He started 3 games for Seattle last year. In those, he went for 167, 195, and Stockton 209, which would have beaten it by a half a yard. Now he's going up against a team in Denver that was the number 8 pass defense in terms of total pass yards allowed, number 8 total defense in terms of total yards allowed, number 3 scoring defense. I think with Bradley Chubb showing up all geeked, he's going to be under pressure. Patrick Surtain is ready to flex and show that he was not a one-year wonder. And Justin Simmons, part of that safety unit, I think they're going to make Geno's life tough. I think he is in the mid to high 100s. I do not see him going over 200 nor 208. So take under 208.5 pass yards at $1.91. Laz, your serve.
All right, I'll tie my first prop pick to what you just laid out there. Part of the reason he won't be going over that total, and it will be sitting at the under, is because one of those passes is going to get picked off. You mentioned the name. I think it'll be Patrick Surtain. I couldn't find that market PS2. Locally that the PS2 pulls off an interception in week 1. But I think you talked about some of the defensive back talent there, the pass rush they brought in. They've added to that this season. We'll see what we get from Randy Gregory contributing as the season goes along. But what they're able to do up front, the talent they have, playmakers, ball hawks, dominant defensive backs that they're able to boast and roll out there. Yeah, the storyline's about Russ and the offense, but I'm really excited to see this defense get to work today. So I think they pick a pass off. I think it could come with just beautiful coverage from the DBs, or it could come from that pass rush getting home, causing a fluttering wounded duck to sail out of Geno Smith's hands. You get that at about $1.64, so still nice numbers there for me. That's all I've got to say about my opening one. For number 2, though, I'll roll my second one off and you can close.
I will say, Laz, $1.64 for that is good. Stateside markets for that, it's lower. It's like $1.57, $1.58. So if you get that at $1.64, it's good value.
The grass is greener on this side of the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, whatever ocean that is. I think it's Pacific Ocean. Grass is greener
and the Tasman.
When it comes to that bet this time. And the Tasman. Throw the Tasman in there. All right, number 2, though. Let's go to your Denver Broncos, a name that has picked up a lot of heat this preseason. Tight ends haven't always been the most consistently productive receivers in a Russell Wilson offense, but the drumbeat is growing nicely for Albert O to go over 30 and a half. Over 30 and a half yards, a low number for someone with, I think, matches up really well against what we're going to see, that intermediate level from the Seahawks defense today. Me, Albert O, over 30 and a half. The loss of Tim Patrick earlier this season, it didn't just narrow the receiving, kind of the target pipeline when it came to the receivers, the wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, the 2 big names off the top there. I think it also condensed it flowing towards your tight end and Albert O there. Moved on from Noah Fant. Friendly face that they'll see on the opposite sideline today. Yeah. I think Albert O, over 30 and a half. He could do that 1 or 2 catches. So that's one for me. You're getting that It's jumping around a little bit, but it's about $1.88 Australia side. That's me. I love that one. I think that's a stone cold lock.
Laz, we're pulling in the same direction. My other propaganda pick is Russell Wilson to go over 22.5 completions. Seattle allowed 23 or more completions to an opposing quarterback, an NFL worst 13 times in 17 games a year ago. In a featured game, Russell Wilson, typically terrific in prime time, he's playing in a familiar environment. $1.82 is what he needs there. Only concern is if Denver's defense does a little too much. Maybe PS2 takes his pick back for 6. Denver's up big at halftime. They're running the ball late. That is my only concern with this completion prop. But I do think in his first full speed game, regulation game with the new offense, might be some check downs, which leads to higher completions, higher completion totals, whether it's out of the backfield to Javonte Williams or dump down to AO at tight end, or even, like a little screen to KJ Hamler just to see a little pitch and catch. I think Russell Wilson continues that trend of Seattle allowing a whole lot of QBs to get completions against them. So Russell Wilson over 22.5 completions at $1.82. Laz, I'll give you a bonus one, and I'll tell you why. On the weekend, because
you love me.
Well, it's part of it. On the weekend, I had 4 NFL plays, and they went 1 and 3. I had a Lamar Jackson parlay miss by 7 pass yards. It was rough. Mate of mine texted me and he said, "Hey, any others you like other than the ones you tweeted?" And I said, yeah, Giants plus 5.5 makes sense. I just don't think it's a number I don't love. And over KC, Arizona, 54 points is a lot. It should go over. I'm just, KC 6-2 overs when they're an away favorite last year. So I like the over, but I'm not going to play it. The 2 I didn't play both hit, and the 4 I did went 1 and 3. So my screen's off. That means we've hit almost an hour.
We have.
So the one that I would advocate for, but is not part of our competition, Patrick Surtain, over 3.5 tackles at $1.69. I think Seattle's going to be throwing a lot in the second half, which gives cornerbacks and safeties an opportunity to pull up tackle totals. So tackles and assists, so total tackles, not just solo tackles and assists, 3.5, a number he exceeded 9 times in 15 appearances a year ago, which would put him at like $1.66, $1.65 rate. So I like it. I don't love it, but if we're looking for a defensive prop for Denver, it's a safe one. I think $1.69 for Patrick Surtain.
All right, we're about to hit the 57-minute mark, which guess what, Phil? That means we're probably going to come in under an hour, which is a phenomenal achievement first out. We're not going too long-winded. Let's close with this. Okay, it was asked, and I'm going to answer this myself. Hey, Phil, ask Laurie about the Cowboys. All I have to say about that is, as awful as the start to that is, you want to know, people are asking, is it Jimmy Garoppolo? I do not think they will make a move for Jimmy Garoppolo. No. I don't think they'll make a move. I think it'll be Cooper Rush going forward until they decide that course is no good and they bring in another name. I don't think it's going to be a sexy name. I think it could be, if you remember 2015 and we've got the Matt Castles of the world running around for the Cowboys. If it was up to me, there's a reason I'm wearing this jumper today. We're going to Hampton, Virginia, one of the sporting hotspots of the world. The talent that has come out of that part of
Allen Iverson,
home country there. That's the name, Allen Iverson. That is who I would love to see the Cowboys go and get to play quarterback until Dak is back. If you don't know, Allen Iverson wasn't just Mr. Basketball, wasn't just the basketball player of the year in Virginia growing up. He was also Mr. Football, a quarterback, a returner, a little bit of running back, and safety. He was a ridiculous
Still
talent.
Holds the state record for interceptions in a single playoff game. He set that in 1990.
If you are a struggling Cowboys fan this morning, or if you are just looking for an entertaining 2-minute video to catch on social media, type Allen Iverson football into any social media platform, click on videos and go see what's out there, because the man was absolutely electric, a joy. So honestly, that's where I'm at from that front. Cowboys fans, it's not going to be a good year, but go imagine something as fun as the answer being the answer to the Cowboys quarterback woes for the next 8-10 weeks, basically until they make they have a nice little catch up with the Green Bay Packers later this season. But that's why Iverson is being represented today. That's the type of talent I'd love to see them go and do. But yes, you want Phil to ask Laurie about the Cowboys? You got it. That's where we're at. But hey,
I didn't get to ask it, but
you didn't. The hopium fades quicker for some teams than others. But it's been a lot of chaos and a lot of fun for the opening week of the season, Phil.
Yeah, I mean,
and we have 60
margins
seconds.
Were small. Margins were small
seconds
for
until
your
the 60-minute
Cowboys.
mark.
Margins were small for your Cowboys with both offensive tackles from a year ago gone. suffering an offensive line injury in this game. Wide receiver 1 gone. At halftime, Dennis Houston was their number 2 wide receiver. Dennis Houston sounds like a Peralta alter ego from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, not an NFL, starting 11. So
Phil, you've got 32 seconds to get us out of here before we hit the minute mark. Can you do it?
Okay. Yes, we're going to go here. Monday Night Football coming up next on ESPN, 10 a.m. If you're in Sydney and Melbourne. Thank you for joining us for week 1 of the Brekkie NFL Show. He is Laurie Horesh. I am Phil Murphy. We will be back same time, same place next week. Thank you for hanging out with us. And until next time, keep it on ESPN, Oz, and Zed for all the latest American sports news. We'll see you later.